All right, guys, welcome to Tactical Pontoon, swimming with the pontoon, number 8. And we'll get started a little bit early. And again, I cannot promise that I will ever maintain an early schedule. If anything, as future, as in the future, as time goes by, I'll probably be late more often than not. But here we are again. Let's go live a little early. So, hey, Steven, what's up, man? How we doing today? Hope you had a good weekend and you're getting ready to go back to work. Anyways, I had planned on doing a live stream now that I got back from Alabama, working on Scott's truck. He'll probably be in chat here in a little bit. We'll have to give him crap, but everything went good. And when I got back, hello, Christina, how we doing today? Talked to you earlier. So I had planned on doing a live stream on Friday. I got back Thursday, fairly late on Thursday. I had planned on doing a live stream on Friday, but just because of the huge amount of triggers I had to catch up on, even though I was only gone a short period of time, it just did not allow me to do so. So I had to push it back to just doing our normal swimming with the pontoon here on Sunday. This is number 8, and I cannot believe here we are, number 8 already. Now, granted, the first couple were not consecutively week by week, but we're looking at a strong month and a half of live streams, and it still blows me away that here we are, a month and a half of live streams. That's pretty cool. I still feel like I'm just getting things down. Again, I do plan. There's a little bit of a change I'm going to be doing here soon. Right now, I'm just using the YouTube little live stream deal, but I do plan on going to StreamYard. I think's the name of it, or Stream. I think it's StreamYard. I'm gonna consult my phone here real quick. Yes, StreamYard. They have a service. That way I've got more options than just the bare bones YouTube little streaming deal. That way, like, for example, I do plan on bringing people on so that we can have a conversation, get some industry insight, and just a few different people as time goes on. But that I may look at starting that one this Wild Card Wednesday, and if it's just a nightmare, well, we'll see. We'll see. I'm gonna give it a try. That way we can expand as time goes on. So, anyways, I made it back from Alabama. It was very busy. However, I did get to pick up the Shadow Systems CR920 that I got delayed on before I left, that I was planning on taking a look at. So this guy is in the house. We are going to talk about it. It is a good looking gun, I have to say. The Glock 43 is not a bad gun. Shadow puts out a good looking gun. This one is the War Poet edition. This is not mine. This was sent in by a customer who I've built quite a few triggers for, and he trusts me to take a look at this guy and improve the trigger. We're going to talk about the internals. We're going to talk about a couple different things about this. As I said, it's a good looking gun. It's tempted me to pick one of these up. I really want a 43. Maybe they'll put out a 43X version, and if they do, that would be the way to go. Or maybe I'll get a 43X frame and put this slide on. I really like this slide. I like the way this gun looks, and we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about a bit more about this guy, and that's going to be the focus of this video. But before we do, I want to talk about a couple other things before we get going. As always, I like to start these videos out talking about another small company to take a look at. Now, this one, you may have heard about them. They're not exactly a small company, but he's growing, and I had a chance to kind of be in a live stream, at least in the chat box, and kind of throw some stuff his way, and then I shot him a message afterwards, and maybe we'll do some stuff in the future. Oh boy, here's Scott, old Destroy 453 to enjoy. Anyways, so that would be Frank Castle Customs. He's down in Florida, and he's looking at expanding. I've on the sidelines, I've seen him do some really amazing work, but we've never had a chance to really connect and do something together. But I've been watching for years, and so I thought I'd give him a shout out. More than likely, we'll be doing some work together. Maybe this this will roll out later about some stuff that Tactical Pontoon is looking at doing to grow not only the brand but just give more people a chance to get a hold of Tactical Pontoon tune triggers or complete setups. So we'll talk. Maybe I'll touch a little bit about that on that before we end. But it's a program that I'm working on. I'm still ironing out the details, and like I said, maybe we'll talk a little bit about that. So Frank Castle Customs down in Florida. If you get a chance, check his stuff out. Tell him I sent you. And I like I said, I talked to him on a podcast or one of the live streams here on YouTube, which would be from Trash Panda Tactical and Angry Sarge. So I caught that. I caught the end of that, and it was a really some good information. I'm excited to see what Frank Castle Customs kind of has going on in the future, and maybe I'll be a part of that. But as I said, Trash Panda Tactical and Angry Sarge, I caught their live stream. They've got tactical considerations coming on soon. There was another guest, and a good chance I'll get a chance to join them early next year on their podcast. So once I know more details about that, I'll let you guys know. So like I said, Frank Castle Customs, check him out. He really does some good work. I've been watching his stuff for a while. I just hadn't had a chance to talk to him. Oh, I think they mentioned something about his YouTube channel. He had a little bit of an issue with his YouTube channel, and he's actually looking to either start it again or regrow. You'll have to look at that. I was busy. My notification, which YouTube notifications are terrible, did not come up, and I missed a good sized portion of their podcast before I realized that it was too late. And so I caught the last like 35 45 minutes of it. So now what do we got? What do we have to talk about? Let's go into the news. What has been going on? Obviously, I just got back. I've been building triggers like crazy. I got a big order of Boogeyman customs, and they're all gone. I had a couple extras. I listed them on Instagram, like 2 extras, and they're already gone. So I'm again out of Boogeyman triggers, but I should have another order coming in soon. I normally order just a few extra and then all of the different orders. I will have a very large order of the Peacemaker triggers from the Gunco coming in. So those there will be a couple of those available, but I'm also looking at doing a ton of drop-ins and sending them out to a couple different shops. But there'll be some extra. So if you're interested in a trigger from me without a lot of weight, it's possible. Just get a hold of me soon. As I said, been busy building triggers. I'm sending a ton of them out. But if you've watched on Instagram, if you looked at the thumbnail, you saw the design that just came out for the new stickers. All right. I said I was going to update my sticker game. I was going to up my sticker game because mine were boring. And Casey at Unicorn Customs really showed me up. So I had to do it. Trigger Jedi. You know you want one. You know you want one. They are on the website right now. $5 free shipping. Renee Ramdeen, yes, you need a Leonidas. That is a game changer. But you also need, and you have one of these coming, a Trigger Jedi sticker. These things they're cool. I'm not gonna lie. When somebody here online, I don't remember who it was, and I apologize for that. You deserve all the credit. And if you're on here, I will send you one who came up with the Trigger Jedi name. And I had to do it. So I hired an artist to knock these things out of the park, and they're cool. They're cool. I'm a dork, and I had to do it. The cool thing also that I've got going on until um, until Turkey Day, Thursday, any sticker that you buy for $5 is going to come with a code for anywhere from $10 to $20 off any trigger system on the website. And that includes, and normally this doesn't happen, that includes anything that's Black Friday priced. So if it's on Black Friday sale and let's say it's $155, you buy a sticker and you get a $20 off code, which I email the code out before I even send the sticker because of the time difference. So you can get you can get in on the sale without waiting for the sticker. Uh, so if it's 155, you get a $20 off coupon code. That becomes 135, which is it's good. It's good on my end. I'm okay. I'm okay. It's you know. Anyways, and then you get that trigger system for $135. It gets shipped out to you, and then you're also put in a drawing for a Peacemaker drop-in system. So any sticker sold from now till Thursday is put in a drawing for a Peacemaker drop-in system, generation 1 through 5, not slimline and not 45 or 10 millimeter, but 9 millimeter, which everybody's got one. Your Glock 19 needs one. Buy a sticker, get a chance to win one, or buy a trigger system and buy a sticker anyways. Buy 3 stickers. They're pretty cool. Shirts, it could happen. It could happen. Know how much work goes things. Yes, it's fun. I have fun with this stuff, and the Trigger Jedi thing, it's fun. I got something else. I got another sticker design coming, the same artist. He did some more work for me, but that'll either be next month or the month after because I've got a bunch of these original Jedi stickers coming, and I've got some here. I've got more coming. I changed the design just a little bit for the next run, but not hugely. It just means you need to get this first run and then order one of the second run. It's great for your toolbox. Even if you are sterile, it has been proven to get you pregnant. Male, female, or whatever you identify as, it will get you pregnant. So you got to be careful there. And any car that you put it on is 50 horsepower up to the wheels, not to the crankshaft, but to the wheels. So these stickers are not only good for your Glock, they're good for your car, they're good for your toolbox, they're good for your family because you get more family. Instant pregnancy. I know, I'm pregnant right now. I'm actually, because I have so many of these stickers, I might be having triplets. It's weird. I know, but that's just the way it is. So stickers, they're cool. Black Friday, I got Black Friday prices up on the website. They're live. There's Leonidas, a Peacemaker Leonidas is on there for like 265, down from 315. Vader systems, those I think 175 for a Vader, which is normally $230. So if you want the action of the Leonidas or Vader, this is the time to do it because again, there's a lot of work that goes into those trigger systems to get them to the wall each and every time and do it safely. There's a lot of work that goes into it, and I don't run a lot of sales on these. So if you're thinking about it, now is the time to do it. And I'll pretty much stop rambling on the sales stuff. So that's pretty much what we've got there for the news. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I do know that Train with Purpose, which I have a system with, kind of an EDC system that's generation 1 through 3 and 4. Their Generation 5 shoe is coming out. That means I'll be able to add that one to the lineup. Their shoe is pretty neat. Like I said, it's got that extra little bit of traction, and it's a good EDC style shoe. I do make some competition triggers from it from time to time, but it's another option, and it's got some really cool colors. Okay, what do we got next? I am going to put a link down in chat. This is something that kind of came up. It's a Facebook article. It is safe to click. Um, it's safe for work there, Scott. If you're out there working on helicopters, you can click on it. It is a Facebook link to the Sling guy. It's an article it's an article that came up that kind of piqued my interest and got me thinking a little bit more about the whole P320 debacle and the things behind it. It brought up a couple things that I didn't even know about that were possibly happening. Now, I'm not lending uh, credence to this article or saying that it's correct or saying the P320 is an issue. What I'm saying is this is some more information and it piqued my interest. It made me think about something that I hadn't thought about when it comes to the safety of the P320. Now, did it change my thoughts on the P320 and it being considered unsafe or otherwise? Not exactly. Okay. My thoughts on the P320, and I looked again. There was that one thing that kind of threw me off, and it said that because I'm so used to pulling the slide off a Glock, not a P320. Um, it talked about the firing pin or striker of the um, of the P320 being under constant tension, which unlike where a Glock, you have to pull the trigger back in order to put full tension on the trigger spring, which is one of those things that with a Timney, because they tried doing a similar setup to a P320 or a Walther or something like that, a Glock, when you pull the trigger back, that pulls on the striker, which puts tension on the striker and the spring assembly. With a P320, it's under tension, and then it has to be released by the sear, and the trigger um, passes by the safety plunger, if you will, before the striker can go forward. Now, it made me think that because it's always under tension, what would it take for that striker to release more so? It just got me looking again. And for a second there, I thought there was an issue. But once I put the striker back in the slide and looked again at the way this system is, I didn't see what exactly he was talking about as that being a problem with the P320. So again, I don't see the P320 as being something that is inherently unsafe. Um, it its system doesn't look to be too much of a problem. Again, like I said, the one thing that I really wish they had done was put a safety tab on the trigger. Now, if you know anything about what originally happened when they went through and did their drop test refit program, they made the triggers lighter. And again, all of your aftermarket triggers, whether they remove travel or not, are lighter than the original factory one. Normally, they're made of aluminum. The factory one is made of steel. But again, a or a safety tab on the trigger is probably a good idea. Pardon me, is probably a good idea. Uh, if you would, all 5 of you or 6 of you that are here, just throw a like button. Just help flow with the algorithm. But if you would, I'm going to do that YouTube thing. I want to remind you guys again, if you would, just hit that like button. Help me grow this thing. But the other thing that did give me pause was, and if any of you guys are P320 owners, check this out. But there seems to be a rash, or at least reading this article, I did not get a chance. Like I said, I've been very busy, so I did not get a chance to really go deep, do some deep research. But the ejector, let's see if we can see that there. The ejector on this guy, and I played with mine to see if mine was weak. But they're saying that the ejectors on these things, a lot of them are weak, and he had pictures of them broken off, bent. And they're saying that's one of the problems that the P320 system is having, is a weak ejector. Now this thing is fairly beefy looking in my eyes, and compared to the ejector on a Glock, it is bigger. It's pretty thick. Okay. So the P320 I have is one from about 3 years ago, just their compact model. Nothing special. It's not a special edition. The frame, or the FCU, is from that original compact. This is the original slide that I sent out and had an optics cut done on at R&D um, R&D machine, which I brought up the other day. So he did the optics cut for that. But this is factory slide. I believe it was their compact. This is not a special model. I did not buy an M18 or M17 or an X10 or any of those. Hey James, what's up? Now James, everybody give him a big thanks. He is the man who let me feel his gun, the CR920. This guy, which we're going to talk about here shortly, after we talk a little bit more about the P320. So the ejectors, they're saying, are breaking or bending. I grabbed mine with a pair of pliers and bent it, tried bending it and messed around with it to see if maybe mine was one that had a weak ejector. I've shot this thing a decent amount, but I can't say as I've put you know not one of those people that keeps records of how many rounds I've shot through a gun. I'm not that uh, organized, shall we say. I would say this one's probably got a couple thousand rounds through it. Overall, it stayed in good shape. Again, it's not one that I shoot a lot, but I personally did not see any of the things that he was calling in this article that I've got linked there. They're also talking about slides jamming shut, extractors breaking. Again, any gun is going to have failures. Are they widespread? I have to look into it a little bit closer. But the one thing that I hadn't caught before is the president of SIG, or CEO of SIG, is a man named Cohen. Okay. Some of them, yes. And a lot of MIM parts are made in India and some chancy places. Christina, how often do I go shooting? Not enough. I do a ton of dry firing. I will take guns out or trigger systems out that I need to test, and I'll put some rounds down range. But I really, unfortunately, do not spend enough time shooting. But it is something I'd like to change in 2023. I definitely slowed down in 2020 once the price of ammo and availability was crazy. I slowed down quite a bit, but I do look forward to in 2023, as I have more time. Maybe we'll see. I do plan on keeping busy to go out and go shooting more. But Mr. Cohen, let me was if any of you guys were fans of Kimber, the name, I believe it's Rob Cohen. Uh, Yeah, yeah, Christina, you're probably a better shot than I am. I don't claim to be a good shot. I honestly do not claim to be a good shot, but I do build triggers for people that can shoot. And maybe that's why I got into triggers, was because I was trying to get rid of a deficiency of my own and create a better trigger so that I could make my gear better than the person using it. So Mr. Cohen ran Kimber. Now, at one time, Kimber was known as the company to go to for custom 1911s. It's really not the case anymore, and hasn't been for a good deal of time. Now, Cohen is one of those people, one of those guys that goes in and makes things happen, normally at the expense of the product. This guy is now in charge of SIG. Now, if you look at a P320 and you look at a P365, there is definitely a higher quality, especially an older P320 compared to a P365. That was one of the things that always blew me away about the P365 is it just always felt really cheap. Innovative, especially when it comes to the magazine, but cheap. And looking into this, I can see why. This guy, this Cohen guy, and I believe it's Rob, it could be John. I forgot. You can easily take a quick Google search, is the guy who's in charge of Sig now. And that makes me wonder if this is something that we are going to see from Sig that happened to Kimber. Now, like I talked about on my 320 stream, and you can go back and take a look at that. Sig is not the company that you think of when you think of Sig Sauer. They're not the Swedish or German company that put out the P20 226. They're an American company and they run American the way an American company does. And if they can make a profit, they're making a profit. So that does give me some pause about Sig. I'm going to continue this series and look farther into Sig. I again not saying that Sig is bad. I'm not saying that the 320 is an inherently bad gun. I'm not saying it's unsafe, but it does make me curious to kind of continue on down this path in time. Just little things I've picked up and I'm going to do some more research on. I don't hate the 320. Really don't. It's not a bad gun. James Cronin, have a couple hundred rounds for us. Hey, like I said, next time I'm in Alabama, I have a couple different places that I want to visit, and you're on the list. So I'll bring some guns out, and hopefully by that time you will have your CR920 back, and it will have a trigger truly worthy of the way it looks. And since we're there, and I've gone through my P320 rant, let's talk about the CR920. Now, this guy right here is the CR920. We saw it just a little bit ago, and it's a good looking gun. James, I can see why you picked it up. This one being the War Poet edition. It's a neat little gun with the 10 round magazine, which I don't know if this is the one that's made, if Shield Arms built this for Shadow Systems or not, but it's nice. It's a good metal magazine. I fed a couple rounds through it real quick, and everything fed really well. Like I said, dry fire and dummy rounds, but we'll be doing some live fire with this guy to kind of verify and check things out. Really, it's a neat little gun. Like I said, I like it. I do like it. I don't like the trigger, and we'll look at the trigger action here in a moment. I just want to go through a couple things that make it different from a Glock 43. Like most Shadow systems, it does have its own backplate for the slide that has an angle to it. The other thing that was different from a Glock 43, I noticed, is that like other Shadow systems, it has, and really we're not going to be able to see this on camera, so I don't know why I took the slide off, but so be it. It has, and somebody asked me about this at one time, and I didn't get a chance to answer. It has a secondary spring on the striker, which is a striker return spring. So a normal Glock just has a striker spring that when you shoot that Glock, that striker is just kind of riding in the striker channel, and you can literally listen to it shake. That's actually kind of that's kind of a thing. You can listen to a Glock shake, and that's the striker after you fired it. Well, with the Shadow systems, they have a striker return spring, which that striker comes out and then it gets pulled back by the striker return spring, which sits in the behind the normal striker spring. That's one difference I noticed. So it'd be quieter. And there are some benefits to a striker return spring, which makes sense. So I'm definitely not opposed to that. The frame feels good in the hand. The pattern that they did like their factory stippling on is good. It's nice. This is a nice frame. Now, like the 43 MOS, this has a rail. Now, this rail is, and here I've got my tactical O light here, which is dead, so it shouldn't catch on fire and kill us all. Like the MOS, it does have the smaller rail, so your standard Picatinny railed components are not going to fit on this. They're gonna fall off. So it's not a standard Picatinny rail. It is the smaller MOS style rail. And I did try to play with it and throw a TLR1 on there originally, and then I remembered, one, it's too short for that. It would have looked very Modern Warfare, Call of Duty-ish, which of course we all know is the best way to look. You could throw a suppressor on there. Anyways, I'm retarded. Don't worry about that. But it doesn't fit. Not only is it too short, but it also is the smaller MOS style rail. So you would be able to get one of the smaller MOS style lights. Streamlight makes one, I like a TLR7 or something of that nature. But it fits, or it will fit, but not my standard lights that are here. It's a nice looking gun. Again, I really like the way this gun looked. The other thing that I did notice is, unlike a factory Glock, the extractor has a pin in the slide. Instead of having a full, let's see if we can get this in the light. Instead of having the rod, the full rod that gets held in by the striker or the slide plate, like a standard Glock, this one has a, similar to some of your a lot of Smith and Wesson, H&K. This one's got a pin that holds the extractor in place in this area here. So this area, this channel, is free of that guide rod, which is kind of neat, especially and this one's got an optics cut on it. That means that screw, no matter how long it is, relatively speaking, and until it hits the bottom of the channel, is not going to hit your extractor plunger, which, if you've been around Glocks enough and you have somebody who has issues and they have sent their slide out for optics cut and they're running into the gun not extracting, it's very common for those screws to be too long and hit that plunger. With this design, that's no longer an issue. That's pretty neat. That's pretty innovative in my book. So neat idea that they implemented. So for all of the good, and I don't know what the sticker price is. I didn't check. I think they're like $700, $800. Could be wrong. The biggest issue, and this is something that Shadow Systems has on all of their guns, is their trigger. This is by far the worst. Just a second. Pardon. This is by far the worst trigger on a Glock platform that I have ever dealt with. It's bad. This is bad. And Steven, yes, it is a Glock 43 size connector. I compared them real quick to see if it was closer to like a Ghost style connector. There's very few connectors for the Glock 43. There's Ghost, Lone Wolf. There are a couple Chinese ones floating around. And then there's the factory minus connector, which is basically their standard connector at this point. And then there is the original connector, which is like an 8-pound connector or whatever. This setup, it's bad. We're gonna take a look at it. We're gonna take a look at it real quick because, like I said, I've seen some bad ones. The trigger shoe itself is not bad. It's polymer. It is a polymer trigger shoe. It has there's really nothing too terribly special about it. It's a curved trigger or semi-flat, whatever you want to call it. It's a good looking trigger shoe. It looks like it'd be fairly beefy. I don't have any problems with the trigger shoe itself. Nothing special. It does have, and let's see if we can take a look. Can you let me get out of the way here. It has a decent amount of take up. But my quandary, if you will, or my issue with it is it does have a good deal of take up with, and I'm not pushing on the safety tab. I'm just pushing on the face of the trigger. It does have a good amount of take up before it hits the um, inside of the trigger guard, which is a little bit much. It's a little bit much for a trigger, but again, that's really not anything. That's more of me just being a nitpicker. And they probably did that so it fits a wider variety of frames on the market, not just their own. So from a, and this is the same trigger shoe I believe they use in all of their guns. They just threw it on their Glock 43 sized trigger bar. Real quick, Steven, I noticed that they recently changed their connector in the large guns to a more minus style connector, but with a tad shorter reset due to the ledge placement. Okay. Now, for the longest of time, their connectors were basically a copy of the blank or the standard 5.5 pound Glock connector. So they went to the minus, which is tuned. It's a good connector, I'm sure. Just right out of the box, a lot of times they're really mushy. But like I said, let me go back to this. It does have a decent amount of take up before the safety hits the wall, the trigger guard wall. And then when you put your finger on the trigger and on the safety, there's to the initial wall. And before I continue, all 9 of you that are here, if you would, if you haven't already, hit the like button. Once you hit the like button, I will continue on with this show when it comes to this terrible trigger. All right, we're going to continue forward. Now, that's the take up to the wall. Can you still see that? And then it creeps and it creeps and it creeps and it creeps and it creeps there and it broke. It breaks at like 7 pounds. It's up there. And for our reset, we're coming forward, we're coming forward, we're coming forward, we're coming forward, we're coming forward. There it is. So that reset, and sorry for moving the camera. I got my computer down here, my camera up there. I'm trying to make sure we can see this. The reset is really long. It almost feels longer than a factory Glock 43. It does feel longer than a Glock 43. So we'll release it again. Come back to the wall, which is relatively short, but a long travel, a long, creepy travel before that 7.5 pound, 7 pound break. And then that long reset. It's bad. I get it. It is this is an EDC gun. For some people, I know an EDC gun needs to be very heavy and that sort of thing. That's their belief system. So I see why they did this, I guess. Maybe have 2 different versions or something, but it's bad. It is bad. James, when I'm done, it will be good. I already did a little bit of preliminary fitting and the results will be good because it really is, aside from the fact that it's a generation 3 style generation 3 style trigger bar. The main design of the components are Glock 43. They did their thing with the trigger bar, whether that was to get away from any sort of infringement or otherwise, or maybe they thought that was a good idea. I can't say. But I will probably more than likely go back to no, it is not a generation 3 or 4 style spring. It's smaller. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do a tabletop video that goes into a little bit more so we can take a look and see these parts, and I'll show a comparison of factory parts versus what's in this guy. So I'll let you take a look. That means it's a proprietary. It's a proprietary spring. It's a proprietary trigger bar, a proprietary housing. The connector looks like it'd be pretty general. So that kind of throws in my book, kind of throws it in, as change it out to something that's factory Glock. I'm going to throw a factory Glock trigger in this. I'm actually I've been busy. So I actually ran out of Glock 43 parts, and I have some on order. Uh, Glock 43 parts up until recently were really hard to get a hold of. They're still way more expensive than they need to be. I don't keep a lot of them around, and I just so happen to have needed to build uh, quite a few Glock 43 triggers. So I'm out of not all of the parts, but enough parts that continuing forward is going to take another week or so. But that's not going to stop me from playing around with this thing. James, there's a good possibility that you won't get all of your trigger pieces back. Just telling you right now. I know we hadn't talked about it before, but we're talking about it now. I hope you're okay with that. 43 parts saved up because they've been hard to get. They've been very hard to get. I actually got to the point last year where I stopped sending out the trigger block housing because I actually don't modify those on most of my or all of my systems except for a Leonidas, which is available for the 43 now. And I would send them with just the trigger bar and the connector. Those are the two magical places that I do work on, and it makes a difference. That's when it comes to the full size Glocks, I do modify the trigger block housing on my competition series, but when it comes to the Glock 43, I don't need to. I've got some secret sauce that goes in there, and it works really well without needing that over travel stop. Uh, one part I don't have. And the trigger housing, like I said, I don't mess with those. I don't need to mess with those except for the Leonidas. But it is easier for me to send out an entire trigger system with the trigger block housing when I can. So I've started doing that again, but there for a while it was a no go. It got really close to Generation 5 trigger systems getting to that point, but the problem was with the Generation 5, I have to mess with those trigger block housings. Made it through. Things are good now, but it was looking pretty bad there for a while. So and without getting too far into that, with like your Generation 5s, with a Generation 5, you can actually change that system over to a Generation 4 housing in a pinch. And initially, when I first got into triggers, like way back in the beginning, when Generation 5 had just launched, a lot of my systems were Generation 4 based that I used in Generation 5s. It kept my inventory down when I was new, and it worked really well. I don't do that any longer. I keep it keeps it simpler, and the Generation 5 base system is really a good system. The thing that I really like about the Generation 5 trigger block housing in comparison to the Generation 4 is that trigger and Generation 3 is that trigger spring assembly. Now, when that trigger spring on a Generation 1 through 4 breaks or is screwed up, you have a better chance of that trigger not resetting or responding at all. Okay? But in a Generation 5 and the Glock 43, even if you get that trigger spring, unless it just completely just disintegrates and gets lodged up in there, which could possibly happen. I personally have not seen that. I've not seen any reports of that, but like anything, it can happen. And as soon as I say that now, I'll probably see it. Um, that trigger bar is going to ride on top of that trigger spring, even though it might be broken, and that assembly, even though it might not be correct, and it could still fail on reset. It could still fail. I'm not saying it's foolproof, but I have seen it be more responsive to things being wrong than when a Generation 3 trigger spring fails or is set cattywampus, if you will, on a trigger um, trigger bar, and that's a major one. I having been around triggers and around troubleshooting of triggers, that's one of the first things is your trigger bar riding on a generation 5? Is it riding in that trigger retainer slot, spring retainer slot, or on a generation 1 through 4? Is that spring correct vertical on the trigger bar? If it's not, you're going to run into issues. And it's very common, especially when people tell me, "Yeah, I cleaned the gun and now my trigger won't reset, or my trigger's not alive anymore." That's the first thing I go to. It's very common. It's extremely common on generation 1 through 4, and it's extremely common on the earlier generation 3 back, where they didn't have a groove cut in the trigger bar. Since I think originally it was either late generation 3 or when they did the changeover to generation 4, where they started putting a small cut or indentation in the trigger bar to help keep that trigger spring vertical. Yes, Steven. My old generation 2 trigger bar used to slip to the side because there's no groove. Yes. I used to see more. I actually used to see those trigger bars get mixed in with some of their stock when I would order a bunch of trigger bars. But over time, as those trigger bars have been used up, they've gone away. You're not going to find many of those older trigger bars. And they did. That was one of the major improvements that they made with the trigger bar, was adding that groove. And even then, a person not knowing what they're doing can easily move that thing when they're trying to put their trigger bar or their trigger assembly back in the gun. If they've cleaned it and they pull it apart, I've seen it many times. I've even seen, like I said, Generation 5. And Glock 43. They will set that trigger bar on top of the trigger spring and not realize that it's wrong. So I literally have saved right up top on my phone in the pictures that picture of a Generation 5 and a Generation 3 spring with arrows and everything, so that people know. And I've sent that out a lot in troubleshooting on Facebook, Instagram, that sort of thing, just to help people out, because it happens quite a bit. Steven, I have an old extra Generation 2 45 10 millimeter trigger bar with no groove. They also had it that way. Hey, Stuart, what's up, man? I finally turned the heat on in the shop. Your hat is actually the one you sent me. Really cool tactical pontoon beanie that he sent me. And if you're interested in that sort of thing, and it is cold, and it finally got cold here in Louisiana. Hopefully it warms back up. Uh, Nordic Nevin there, Nordic Nevadan. That would be Stuart. I'm sure he would hook you up with a beanie if you ask really nicely. Um, it's very warm. Being in Louisiana, I never really thought about adding something like that to the website, but it definitely came in handy here these last couple days, because it's been an extremely cold 55, which for somebody who is now used to Louisiana, that's extremely cold. And I'm kind of thin skinned now. Back when I lived in Missouri and was younger and grew up on the farm, that was nothing. But nowadays I'm kind of thin skinned, and I very much appreciated the hat. Finally turned the heat on, and then in order to make sure that it wasn't loud in the back streaming, I did turn it off. So, what else do we got going on with the CR920? Again, it's a good looking gun. It's really good. It's got me thinking about picking one up, or at least a 43X with a slide, or a 43X and using their slide. It's a good looking slide. And like I said, the neat thing that they did with the extractor and moving that rod so that you can easily put on an optic without worrying about crushing that rod and messing with your extraction. It's pretty neat. Do I prefer it for an optics gun? Yes. Um, for disassembly, probably not. Probably not. Yes, a G48. I'll tell you, honestly, I like the 43X better. I like the shorter guns versus like a what they would consider the 19 long slide where people chop the grip of a 17, or they take a G26 and they put a 19 slide on it. I tried that for a while. For me, I just always felt like it was just a little bit unbalanced. The 48's not bad. 40 the really cool thing about the 48 is the grip length actually works really well on it. It isn't bad. I do prefer the 43X. I'm just weird like that. And um, there's a 26X. There are people that build 26Xs in, professional frame builders. I know Quintero Customs does one if you can get on his books. JM Customs does one. And the originator, or the original guy who did it was Shoot Us Tactical. Frank is a good guy. Frank is a really good guy. He's built some really good guns. Unfortunately, the path and people that he worked with, and having been down a similar road, I understand, kind of threw him some curves and he got out of the gun business altogether. So I was really hoping, and if I asked him enough, he would probably build a G26X for me. But I know he's enjoying life outside of the gun industry, and so I'm not going to bug him about it. And one day, maybe he'll build me one if me and Frank, I would say we're pretty good friends, especially after some stuff that he went through that kind of then I ended up going through with the same person. So I relied on him a lot during those times, and he gave me some really good, valuable information. He is the man when it comes to the G26X. He did a G26 double X, really neat. The Glock 17 length handle on a 26 slide. That would be cool. That's fun. It's kind of one of those fun guns. Yes, Frank is busy painting, and the man can Cerakote like nobody's business. He can paint out on the oil field like nobody's business. He had said he would want to do some paint on my car, but the man's busy, so I don't bug him about it. The Glock 26, maybe one day I'll have an OG slot or an OG G26, but until then, there is a company, Nomad Defense, is coming out with a G26X, and I've been bugging them. I should have one before they're out. So no, not Frank Castle Customs, but Frank of Shoot Us Tactical. Like I said, I don't even think his Instagram is up any longer, or the Facebook, or even the website. Like he's moved on, at least for now, from the firearms industry. He's a legend. He does amazing work. He's very straight to the point. I really like talking to Frank, and he comes up with some interesting things when he talks. And maybe eventually I'll get a G26X from him or some work from him. Like I said, I missed out. I did get a chance to really confer with him when I was going through some stuff with Tactical Pontoon. So I got a chance to know him really well, and he talked about getting back into the business, but he decided against it, and I can't blame him. I cannot blame him. He had his he made some waves. He did some really good work. Maybe we'll see him again someday. Maybe I'll get a chance to have a G26X, but he's the man with the plan when it came to that. Until then, I will settle for the Nomad G26X when it arrives. They're not finished with it yet. I don't know if they're shooting for SHOT Show, but they might be. Like I said, well, I should get one whenever the initial mold is ready. So I'm looking forward to that. What slide should I do? I haven't decided. What slide to go with. Speaking of slides and which ones to go with, we talked about the SCT frame, and I'm going to be sending that to Casey at Unicorn Customs. I figured out what slide I was going to go with. I got a hold of my guys over at Zafiri. I've been working with Zafiri for a long time. They were relatively new when we both did a build along with Jonathan of Tactical Toolbox. And back then, Jonathan hadn't even hit 100,000. I think now he's sitting at like 750,000. So, I mean, it's time flies. So, I got a hold of the Fury and I went with one of their Glock 19 slides in, of course, green, which you can't really tell with this lighting. But if you follow my Instagram, you've seen pictures of this guy. This setup is pretty nice. I've got the Swamp Fox Justice up top, just to piss Jesse off. I have a TLR1 HL up front, but this guy is actually I stole it off my Iron Man build just to kind of make it look more tactical. And again, to piss Jesse off. I know he's not a big fan of lights on the gun, so there it is. It also is featuring a let's see if the camera, if you can see that. This is a Tactical Pontoon Glock 19 barrel. There were very few of them. I don't know if I'll ever do another run of them. So they pretty much stay in my builds. I think I've only got a couple left. They kind of stay in my builds. It was neat having them. I don't know that it would ever really be profitable to do another run. I might do some more runs, maybe for myself, or I might do some special stuff. We will see. But it's got a Tactical Pontoon barrel in it, which means, of course, it has 50 more horsepower and has been known to get people pregnant just by them looking at it. I don't know why. Like, again, get you a decal, but don't get too many of them. You will have triplets. I am pregnant just because of how awesome these decals are, or these stickers are. Just get one. I mean, you can get a bunch of them, but again, it's been known to cause pregnancy. I don't know why. They're just that cool. So this, don't drop it. This will be going out to Casey at Unicorn Customs. I told him, do your worst. Do your best, do your worst, turn it into something that people need to see. So I didn't give him any direction. I plan on getting this guy out to him this week. It's going to be a busy week, but I'm going to try. It should be really cool. All right. Well, what I might do is I'll see if I can't sterilize those stickers before they go out. Just be careful. Just be careful. It has been known to happen, but 50 more horsepower. And I know a couple of you guys are all about the cars too. So that's an additional 50 horsepower. Maybe I can sterilize them so I don't have to worry about the kids. But it definitely horsepower. 50. Wheel horsepower, not crank. These stickers are cool. And I'm also kind of retarded. It gives both. It's not just horsepower or pregnancy. It is both. At least, like I said, I've got a bunch of them. My car has at least another 200 horsepower plus. I'm probably pregnant with triplets. I don't know. Whew, that went off the rail. I'm sorry. I really am. I'm weird. So, this is going out to Casey at Unicorn Customs. He's going to make something magical happen with his framework and Cerakote. It will be beautiful. It may be a while before we see it because I don't expect people to jump on my stuff and you know, they got lives. They're busy. They got stuff. The Tactical Pontoon builds are for fun, and we will see it when we see it, and it's going to be awesome. So since we had to go through the CR920 trigger, let's take a look at something good. See if I can get light. There we go. Right at the wall. Oh. See if we can get the light. Right there. Oh, it's fast. It is a different slide, so I haven't fully tuned this trigger to this slide yet. So there's a little bit more travel than I would hope for Leonidas on the reset. But it's still good. It's still miles better than this guy. This guy looks the looks on this thing are amazing. It's kind of like me, only opposite. Looks like crap. That would be me. Performs pretty good. So no, it's not like me. Leonidas is just amazing. Leonidas is amazing. CR920 will be amazing when I'm done. It's going to be fun. And as for Scott and his cabin air filter, Scott is the one that I went to Alabama for to go help him. I build a shop. I have a shop. I have a shop. I put together a shop with a lift. Scott even comes out to help me with it. And then when we need to work on his vehicle in Alabama, I have to go all the way to Alabama and work in the rain, in the cold, on the ground. What type of sense does that make, Scott? So you take your cabin air filter, you shove it. You shove it. Anyways, guys, I have hopefully I've entertained you just a little bit, and you learned something. The 320 stuff, I'm gonna go farther into it. Like I said, Kimber, Cohen, the guy who ran Kimber kind of into the ground, looks like he's at Sig now. Interesting. I don't know. So we'll see. As it is, we will catch you next time on Tactical Pontoon, Swimming with the Pontoon, or Wild Card Wednesday. Get you a sticker, but be careful. And again, anywhere from $10 to $20 off, or 25. I'll have to look and see what I've got it set to. Off anything on the website, trigger wise, even if it's on sale, you get some amazing deals. That's it. I will catch you guys next time. And until then, have fun, be safe,